So I am really, really happy to be back with my friends Brice and Medyhne today, and David will be joining us, but it's 5 o'clock in the morning where he is. So as soon as he gets up and switches his computer on, poor David will be joining us. So how are you doing, ladies? How are you doing, Medyhne?
Oh, excellent. Really, really good. Got rid of a big issue last week that was hanging over, which is sort of the dark energies trying to come in and suppress my voice. So that's gone. Yay. Yay. And so other, wonderful things that are happening I want to talk about today are the 222 portal that we're going through today in Australia. It's the second, to 22. So this is huge, and so I'm feeling the energies of that, and that's very positive. Australia,
hang on a sec. Here's David. Yeah. Sorry, we'll just let David come and join us because now he's
excellent. Hi, David.
Hi, David. We just started, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's cool.
We just started a few minutes ago, but you haven't missed anything much at all. Oh, well, before we dive into that, Medyhne, we'll just see how the others are getting on, and then we've got lots of topics to discuss today. That'll definitely be on the list. Anyway, well done, David. Sterling effort. 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm impressed. Are you okay?
Yeah, good.
Good.
David, every time I film with Tamara, it's usually 5 a.m. my time, but I'm used to getting up super early, but that is definitely good job. That's definitely, it's hard to do that. So good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning to all of you.
Oh, good morning, everyone. And good morning, good evening. And here it's 9 o'clock at night here. It's very dark. We've already had lots of orbs flying around, haven't we, Brice? So yes. Well, we've got some really exciting things to talk about today. So we'll each sort of go around the table and kick it off, because I know you've got some good things to chat about as well, David and Brice. But Medyhne, you were just talking about the portal. Do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because in Australia, you're already on the 2nd of the 2nd, 22.
Exactly. Yes. So this is huge. It's a huge energy that's coming in for an opening of the Aquarian gateway, and these frequencies of light will assist in accelerating humanity's awakening process. So this is huge. And the 222 number is the number that pulsates the impetus of the power on all planes and the ability to change the course of history. Yay. So this is an energy that's going to shift us in a direction that we're co-creating. So really, it's so important to stay focused on the light and to hold love-based patterns that we want to co-create, because this is a huge energy for co-creating what we want to bring in. So on the 2nd of the February, this is the beginning of this gateway, and it will amplify that 222 number 1,000-fold, because it's 5 times 2. But then what happens is the gateway continues to the 22nd of the 2nd, and then it will be 6 twos. So the amplification of those 6 twos will mean that it is amplified 10,000-fold, that 222 number. Again, you can imagine the frequency or the energy of that frequency in our field, and that's a very powerful co-creation, obviously, and that 22nd will complete the passageway through that Aquarian gateway. So this is a very powerful time for co-creation of the planet that we all want to create. And on top of that, the 222 lunar year, which many people celebrate, is the year of the tiger, symbolizing rebirth and reinvigoration. So it's a very exciting time when you look at it that way. And I think the way that we see the world at the moment, that obviously at this 3D matrix level, it's looking very complicated at times. It can look very, challenging and dark. But when you bring all these aspects into it, I think it's really important to realize that there's a lot of higher things going on that are in play, that are actually supporting us to co-create the reality that we want.
God, that fits in so well with what you and I were talking about when we were having our pre-record chat, Brice, doesn't it? Because we were both saying, David and Medyhne, that Brice and I were talking about that we're really sort of personally, for us two, we've got to the end of these sort of talking about they've done this to us, we've been programmed, we've been this, and very much moving through the grief cycle into the acceptance stage of, okay, that's where we're at, that we've been, now what are we going to do about it? So that fits perfectly with that energy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think we forget that these other things are going on as well. These higher metaphysical things are in play that are really supporting us, because if we focus too much on that 3D, it does look like we've got, you know, a lot against us sometimes. So, yeah.
I noticed about that. Oh, carry on, Brice.
No, I was about to say, I've noticed that my viewers have noticed that like orbs are constantly going around me now. I've seen it on Catherine's videos. I've seen, like, you can see it, that metaphysical starting to come into more of a reality where the veil is dropping, because we are going from a third density, which is the physical density. I'm not talking about the consciousness at this point. I'm talking about, that's a heavy density to be in. And now we're going up to fourth density. And so it's going to get lighter, and it's going to be a little bit more clearer to see beyond the veil. And one thing that's exciting for me moving past, because there is, I mean, Catherine and I were talking about this, there is a grieving process you go through when you're awakening. There's always a black pill that goes with the red pill, but I'm tired of the grieving process. I want to move into that new reality, because the metaphysical, the spiritual that I've been experiencing, I've always had spiritual stuff happening to me since I was a kid, but as of late, the intensification of that, it's like, that's more real to me now than the BS that I've been living through for the past 38 years. That's more real now. And it feels better. It feels more loving. It feels more exciting. It feels like we're like more purposeful. And that's what I want to focus on now, is like, yeah, that story they gave us, it was crap, but guess what? The real story is really cool and it's awesome. And we're a part of it. We're a part of that. So
what do you think, David?
I just know, like, it's a bit of a challenging one, because you do see a lot in the 3D that's happening right now. I mean, in terms of stuff that's happening here, Medyhne's probably seen a lot of it as well. Maybe you guys have too. So many people are being served with like the police are being served and the politicians are being served, and it's really great. And there's loads of people descending on Parliament House in Canberra, and that's happening all of this week, and it's been happening in a few days. From the spiritual perspective, though, I can tell that people are waking up rapidly. I can tell that so many things. You know how in the Matrix, Cypher wants to go back to sleep, and there are many people like that too. But there's definitely a big awakening happening on so many levels. But like you guys said, it's now time for action. Like, it really is time for action, because we can't really keep playing victim the entire time and saying that this has been happening, because there's a lot happening, and our supply chain is literally hanging by a thread here. Like, I heard something crazy last night. I don't know if it's true, but I could see how it would be true. Like, this trucking company, this guy who's works with one of the major trucking companies, he was like, by the end of this week or early next week, we will have no trucks bringing any food into the state at all, and that that really concerned me. So I just hope there's some sort of divine intervention that's gonna come in. I mean, I'm prepared a little bit. Could always be more prepared for sure, but I just don't know what's going to happen to the masses. In that respect.
Tamara told me on my last episode with her, and I thought this was such a good perspective, and I'll be careful about how I say this. So we are all across the world, we're experiencing shortages. I mean, we see, I'm in the best situation living in Atlanta, Georgia, than all four of us, for sure. I'm in a conservative state. There's none of this. But we are seeing shortages in our grocery. You go to the grocery store, there are empty shelves for sure. And something that Tamara brought up was that in this process of like, we'll just say detoxing the dirty off of the planet, we have to also look at our food supply. And we know that our food supply is not like, I know all four of us are probably people that I know. Catherine and I've talked about this a lot. I'm very careful about what I eat. I really look at, but we're still bringing in stuff that we can't, because it's been out of our control. So what's happening, again, I'm trying to paraphrase it, guys, that episode is on Rumble for a reason because it's very potent, is a lot of these big corporations that produce food around the world have not been using the best things in our food. And so some of what we're seeing on the outside is also the good guys, if you will, taking out that from our circulation in order to then replenish it with stuff that's actually good for humanity. Does that make sense?
It does. I watched that video. That was a great video you did with her. And I got 2/3 of the way through and the video stopped and I couldn't watch anymore.
It's reloaded now and the whole thing works now. So nice try, Satan, but we got it going. So
it's that really interesting stage, isn't it? What you were both just saying there is like, I completely agree. There's so much of our supply chain that needs to go, you know, reliance on buying cheap stuff that's made by slave labor, often by little people in horrendous conditions that we don't need, that's feeding this consumerism. We know that a lot of our food is, and animals' food, don't even get me started on that, you know, is produced in atrocious conditions using awful stuff. It's not real food, it's fake food. But equally, we're not set up. So where I am, I live in a lovely countrified area, and I was on my lovely dog walk, my favourite thing to do. I took the ponies up to the top field, and you know how idyllic is my life, and then went out for a 2-hour dog walk. And I was just thinking, God, this is just, you know, people talk about this is the most stressful time in history. I was saying this to Brice earlier, and I'm like, look at the Middle Ages. I would have been too old. I wouldn't be alive anymore because I'm well over that, you know, what the average age was. Most of us would have had our head cuts off, or we'd be so poor that we couldn't eat. You know, the stress that humanity has gone through for centuries. And that's okay, even if a lot of our history isn't real. Look, a lot of the past life regressions people have done, some of that is real. And you're like, it's just been horrific area after horrific area after horrific area. And I was thinking, I'm looking at my life now. I am so blessed. You know, I've got running water, I've got heat, I've got food in the cupboards at the moment. You know, I live in this beautiful place. And then I go into the city for a day at the weekend and all hell breaks loose. But that's why I've chosen, I cannot live in a city because it's beyond me. I know everyone's different and we're all meant to be unique, but I'm like, why would anyone choose to put themselves there? Why would any human choose to live in a city? Now that's just my perspective. I've got friends that come to where I live and like, oh, that's creepy out here on your own. How could you live there? But I suppose the point I'm trying to put is 2 points. Going back to the food shortage issue, is I agree, we're definitely, with what you and Tamara are saying, Brice, we're definitely moving in the right direction, but how do we bridge that gap? Because like where I am here, we've got plenty of countryside to grow your own food, but no one's doing it because they're all working in London all day. You know, they're all doing the corporate jobs. And then, so there's this awkward transition where this is going to stop before that one's ready. Does that make sense?
And I think this is where humanity is going to shine, though. Because I remember Prime Minister saying this once, because I said to Prime a long time ago on a show, you know, of course, we've been thinking the end was near for 2 years now. And I said to him, I was like, but what about all the people who are angry? And Prime said, don't forget about the power of the love of God. And with the whole food sort of thing, like I have a pantry full of rice and beans right now, full of it. And so if something were to happen where we couldn't get to the grocery store, I have enough food where I can make sure my neighbors were okay. We might not be eating pretty for a couple of months, might not be gourmet, but there's enough for everybody to have enough to survive.
But what, the dog can't eat that.
No, well.
So do something.
Wait, I think we could get Robbie sorted. Robbie can hunt. Let me tell you, he's a street dog. He knows how to hunt. I
think that's the importance of co-creating, you know, the reality that you want, you know, in every single way, not just with food, but in every way. I mean, I just got myself a space drum. I don't know if you can see behind me. It's from France and it's absolutely beautiful. It's like raindrops. When you hit it, it sounds like raindrops. So I'm trying to co-create it within my own environment, a beautiful space that will take me through this period. And if we all do that, I think that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, see, I've already got that. I mean, I'm so happy in mine that I then feel awful and people get really cross with me when I say that on videos. But we've been preparing this for ages. We didn't know it was going to be this, but we've all been doing this work for so long that we've sort of created environments for ourselves, which are pretty nice, really, to different degrees, I'm sure. But
and if you're holding a high frequency, you'll just actually magnetize that in anyway. You know, it will just form around you. You know, so it's all about the frequency that you're holding and the energy that you're holding as well.
And it's, again, it's time for humanity to shine. I think you look at all these, I mean, look at the Underground Railroad, look at all the times where there's been so much friction in humanity, and the majority of people shine. They come out and they start helping each other. You know, in an emergency situation, nobody cares what your political affiliation is, what your race is, what your gender is. They just want to help you. You know, even after,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think if that were to happen, where there was like a massive shortage of food, I think that we're going to see humanity rise up and people helping their neighbors, you know, and not caring about this anymore, because they want to make sure, you know, I believe most people genuinely don't want to hurt you and genuinely will help you. I don't know, you know, if you hear a child, I don't know one person, if they heard a child screaming, wouldn't look around to see what they could do to help, you know. And I do think that will happen. I think that has happened in history, is that neighbors will open the door to neighbors and give food to neighbors, give food to the dogs, to the animals, to make sure that that everyone's taken care of, that until we are able to get over that hump of you know, yeah. And we have that gift of cooking has been kind of stripped from us over the past, 50, 60 years, of people now eating fast food and ready-made foods and stuff. But I think we'll pull through it if we have to go through something like that. I believe humanity will get, we might be really skinny when we get done because we won't be eating as much as we normally do, but
it won't be the same levels of obesity. So that's great.
We'll just fix that problem right away. So
what do you think about that, David?
I think some people, given the obesity epidemic worldwide, some people won't need to eat for a few months and probably need to will be okay to live off their fat stores. But all jokes aside, I think going back to what you said about being prepared and preparing for this kind of period without really knowing it, I completely agree with that. I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago, and he said, "What's the deal over there? Are you still fighting?" Because I caught up with him back in 2020. He lives in Victoria. He came over for some work, and we had a bit of a chat about this. Was obviously very fresh at that time. And he's like, "Man, I thought he's still fighting. Have you got the thing yet?" And I was like, "No, I haven't got it." Even though they've just stepped up the you can't really do anything now here. I mean, you can't go to the bottle shop. You can't do. It's stupid. You can actually walk into the bottle shop and do your shopping, but then when you get to the checkout, they won't serve you. So you've already had the potential to spread the damn thing all over the place, but it's so stupid. But,
and the other thing, Dave, too, that you can't, it's just come out, the court system, the legal system, you can't go into a court anymore unless you've got one of these. So that basically they can only have the one narrative there, can't they? Because if everyone who's got one of these has that perspective, you know, it's really trying to change the narrative within that structure.
But doesn't that also mean you and David can do what you like and they can't drag you into court?
Potentially.
How are they going to try you? You're not going to be about it.
I never thought of that. That's a good idea. We have free reign.
what I was going to say was my friend goes. He said, "Are you still fighting? Are you holding strong?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm not getting it." He goes, "Man, I thought that after a little bit of pressure, like if they took away, I don't know, whatever, a bunch of things, I thought you would have cracked ages ago." And it kind of occurred to me that A, he didn't really know who I was, really, but B, and maybe I'm a lot stronger than he thought. But it wasn't really about that. It was about kind of, for better or worse, I'd kind of removed myself from society in many ways. You know, like I wasn't working a normal job in an office. I didn't really go out anymore. The only thing I really needed from society, apart from a gym, which can easily be worked around, was the supermarket. And you know, given that I had like certain electronics that I kind of needed, like, but if I had all of that prior to this, then I only needed to go to the supermarket. And I was talking to a friend about it, and he goes, I said, you know what? I kind of removed myself from society a long time ago. And he goes, is that a good thing? And I said, well, maybe not necessarily a good thing on the surface, but it's a great thing when you think deeper, because if you remove yourself from everything, and it's the mindset of, it's the mentality of removing yourself from not caring what anybody thinks, not being reliant on going to a restaurant. Like, I know people that really want to take their thing just so they can go to a restaurant, and they don't even go that often, you know. And I'm like, well, because I remove myself, society has nothing that I want, really. You know,
And
the
I
average
think you
the average person isn't healthy, wealthy, or wise. Why would I want to be around those kinds of people? You know.
I think that if you've taken yourself out of that 3D matrix, you're actually going to be able to function better within this whole transition period that's happening. And I notice that people that have done that actually are faring much better on the whole, because they're not sort of dependent on everything within the system. And I think that's a great thing. I think that helps this process of transition. And I think that's good.
It comes back to, I mean, every single one of us is here on our own unique journey, and we've all got certain lessons that we're meant to learn in this life. Sometimes I'm a bit slow, but I get there eventually. So, you know, everyone watching this is going to be in a completely different situation. But what it's really hit home to me personally, on a personal level, is it's almost like I can see now why I've made all these decisions that didn't necessarily make sense, or everyone else told me they didn't make sense at the time. Now, hindsight's a sort of wonderful thing. And obviously I'm at a later stage of my life, whereas people watching this who are much younger, you know, they haven't had the chances necessarily to make certain choices yet. But their energy that they've been born with is completely different to what I was born into. So you can make as many excuses as you like, but when you look back and you can see, I can now see exactly why, like you were saying, really, David, why I choose to take myself out of those situations. So I chose a long while ago to take myself out of the corporate situation, and that was a very conscious decision. And now I'm so grateful I have, for all the reasons that you've just expressed. So these decisions, what we make, and we've all spoken quite a lot before about, often you get quite a lot of resistance from external people because it's not what they expect you to do. But when you follow your heart and do them, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to get, oh, tick, I didn't realize why that was really good, but it was well done, sort of thing.
Absolutely. I've my life, before all this happened, I was not living, never have I lived a conventional life like I was supposed to as a white Southern woman. I've spent most of my adult life going back and forth to India, spending months and months there at a time. It's not conventional. And it's definitely changed the way I've lived my life. And it's so funny. And I don't know if we've spoken about this, Catherine, but I've spoken about it with Taylor, that part of any spiritual practice is learning how to see the truth through the illusion, because everything really is an illusion. If you get deeper into that, that's the truth of who you are as an eternal spirit. But there's also a sense of seeing the truth in the world. And one thing I've noticed is looking back on all my time traveling to India, the crap I've been through in my own practice, my Darna of the soul, I was able to see this for what it was from the very beginning. And so looking back, I mean, hindsight is 2020. Looking back, all these decisions I had made, which my parents might not have been happy about, society might not have been happy about, really prepared me for this moment sitting here, for me, February 1, 2022, talking to you guys, because I was able to see the truth of the illusion. And it became so much more. What was happening, what we were preparing for, was so much more than just this secular idea of success, which really is corporations, work, keeping up with the Jones. We had tapped into something more than that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to say that from an ego type perspective, because my birthday is this Friday, and I always panic I always have like these like massive emotional breakdowns before a birthday, ever since I turned 27, which I'll be 39. So that was a long time ago, but that I've had this like stress, and it usually came down to this idea of like all the expectation that had been put on me for my whole life of where I was supposed to be. in the society I come from, and that I'm not. And even though I could never go there, I could never be a part of that never was attracted to me, there was this sense of like, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, because I'm doing something that nobody else has done before. But in the same time, this is the first birthday coming up where I actually am feeling really relaxed, because I feel like there's a purpose. There's been something deeper there. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
totally.
My partner has his birthday on the Thursday, the day before. So
oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. But I love the quote, if you can see through the illusion, you are part of the solution. And I've got that on my desktop because I think that's really powerful. And yeah, so that I think the illusion is great, because when you know that you're in the illusion, then it gives you a sense of motivation to move forward and do something about it. Friends, a lot of people actually online lately have been talking about we're in a simulation, so that's a whole nother level again. But you know, that's a bit much of a mind warp for me at the moment to go there.
Reality show for the aliens. Come on, this is like Earth season 12. Where are we at? We're just reality show right now. So.
I know.
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of spiritual communities where like I now I'm disgusted when I see like a yoga shala where they're requiring this or this. Like, I'm disgusted by that. Like, that disgusts me. Like, what have you been doing all these years? Gymnastics? Obviously you don't understand liberation, which is the whole point of this freaking practice, is liberation. If you're not, it's like, do you guys know that creator JP Spears? Is that his name?
JP Sears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love him. But this yoga magazine here, I think it was Elephant Journal, I think, I'm not 100% sure, wrote like a hit piece on him because he's like us. And I was out walking the dog the other day, and I was like, that's so funny that a yoga magazine would write a hit piece on someone preaching liberation.
Yeah.
It's weird.
The price of freedom is eternal. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. I love that. I love that quote. Lots of quotes today.
Can we all rest at some point? I'm tired.
I think one of the biggest things I've learned, and it's been really brought to front with the Joe Rogan thing. Oh, I saw the biggest thing before, because I just shared on my Telegram about how they've had a new study from Japan showing that the horse dewormer, I won't mention the word, actually does work. Which we all knew all along. I just shared it. And then Joe Rogan shared it, not via me, unfortunately. And he's got absolutely slated on Spotify again for spreading misinformation. It's like, this is a scientific study done by a really serious institute in Japan. It's not misinformation at all. It's just not the information you've done. But the whole truckers thing, and the Joe Rogan thing has really made me take a big look at myself, because I've said all the way through this that I as an individual am anti all of them for humans, actually, because I've been studying it for 20 years and I've never found one for humans that works. That I'm still looking into. There's very little study on some of the other ones. So, like, you know, Brice and I have got rescue dogs from places abroad where a lot of the diseases like distemper are really rife, and we don't have rabies in the UK and things like this. So that I'm still researching, so I can't give a firm opinion on that. And then everyone's coming out saying I'm not anti and I was thinking, well, you are, because you said all this stuff here. Why don't you just say it? But what I mean is, when I mean I'm anti this, I mean for me, not for anyone else making an informed decision. And so I realized it's all terminology and how people choose to perceive that. So I am, for me, that anti this, but I haven't got a problem if a consenting adult chooses to make a choice. Like people who volunteer themselves for medical trials, I really admire them. Good. If you consciously choose to volunteer yourself for a medical trial, I'd far rather they did that than tested on animals. But I object to them doing medical trials on people that haven't consented. That's a completely different point. And I certainly object to them doing, you know, medical trials on animals that absolutely have not consented. And
there's so much disinformation. There's so much disinformation in the whole, you know, the pharmaceutical area, that people can't make informed choices anyway.
Exactly.
Because they don't have the full range of knowledge that they need to make proper decisions. And you know, really, it's just the truth is so inverted when it comes to these areas. That's why the whole system has to actually be you know, dissolved, so that we can create a whole new structure. Because the way it's set up at the minute, I mean, you look at the media system, my gosh, the global news is owned by Chorus Entertainment. Chorus Entertainment is owned by Shaw Corporation. Shaw Corporation is owned by Rogers Media. Rogers Media is owned by the Vanguard Group. Vanguard Group owns Pfizer, Moderna, Merck, Johnson & Johnson. I mean, you know, Vanguard Group also owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, you know.
And everything.
Like, there's no way that we can get information.
Every multinational.
Yeah, exactly. In the sources that are in front of us, that gives us any sort of opinion that is informed or balanced.
I know, and you had some good points about that, David, when we were speaking to each other via Messenger and things, about the whole concept of intelligence, education, informed choice. You know, you had some really good points to bring up about that.
Yeah, intelligence is one of those funny topics that everybody has their definition, but it's typically the societal definition of intelligence, which is basically just academia, right? And it comes up often because intelligence is always the marker, isn't it? It's always like, oh, that person's not that smart, or that person's really smart, or whatever. And I kind of, you know, over the last few years, I've been thinking, like, what is the real definition of intelligence? Because there could be so many definitions. You know, if your definition of intelligence is basically how well someone can do at school, then it's so narrow-minded. Like, you could take the idea that somebody is really, really good at, say, woodwork or something. That's a different level of intelligence altogether. But that's not really what, who cares about that, you know, in society, really? It's all about how well you can, you know, quote unquote, will memorize things. But I had a mentor of mine I was speaking to recently, and he said his definition of intelligence was the ability for someone to design their life in a way that they want, but also create a plan and execute it, and successfully, which I thought was pretty cool, but also, you know, maybe a bit long-winded. But I watched this video just a couple of days ago. You know, when you see videos, it had nothing to do with intelligence whatsoever, but the woman in the video said, intelligence isn't your brain. Intelligence is your mind and the power behind it. And that was like one of the biggest things I took from that video, which I think is an amazing definition because it's universal. It's one of the things that we all have. People may be born with a good memory or a good, you know, elite athletic ability or whatever, any number of skills, but the mind is the one thing that we all have. It's a level playing field. And I think that's why it's important, because we need to have, how can you say that someone is quote unquote unintelligent when just because they have a good, you know, or, you know, because they have a good memory or whatever, they don't have a good memory for that thing that they're trying to memorize. You know, it has to be a level playing field.
I guess I look at it in terms of consciousness more than intelligence, but it's sort of the same thing, but it's another way of looking at it. But sort of different consciousness creates different experiences. And intelligence to me is a bit more about the mental body, the mind, the cerebral, whereas consciousness is more to do with maybe the soul. And so that's how I sort of look at things, I guess.
And I was listening, it was funny because we were messaging each other about that, David, and then at the same time I was listening because I'm so into the animal communication, and I was listening to this brilliant video, and one of this, it was so lovely to see because there's this top behaviorist, and I did biology and animal behavior, and virtually everything I learned about animal behavior in university I now know is completely wrong, because we've always told not to put human emotions on animals, and now that's been disproved. And we were told that what separates humans from the rest of the animal kingdom was the ability to think ahead, use tools. Well, that's been disproven because we now know there's loads of animals that can use tools, and we know that there's loads of animals that can plan ahead and problem solve and everything. And it was so beautiful to see this professor, I wish I could find the link again now, but that was so set on the fact that there was such a huge difference between humans and animals. And then he said, but we've now crossed off everything on the list that was the definition of the difference between humans and other animals, and now we do all have to accept that we are just another form of animal. Because look at the whale's intelligence. Look at the cheetahs. The thing you need a different type of awareness, consciousness, thought processes. It's no good me being a human and thinking like a horse unless I'm interacting with my horses, because I don't live like a horse. Well, I do actually, but not a good example. But you know, it's so relative, and you're so right, David. I mean, look at what's happened now. I mean, it's been so obvious this last 2 years, because everyone has pointed out that supposedly really intelligent people have got no common sense. And isn't that well, but do we mean by common sense that actually can't tune in to what's really happening? Because all these hugely successful professors and scientists and lawyers who were respected and won Nobel Prizes and all sorts of awards, as soon as they've gone across the narrative, now all of that has been slated, and now suddenly they're a nobody. Just shows how ridiculous it is, doesn't it? It's a completely man-made label.
Yeah, animals would see through it, I reckon. You know, they see the truth. Yeah, we can all learn from them right now. I've got a new alarm clock. My dog jumps on my arm and taps me every morning to get up. So that's my new alarm clock.
My dog, I'll tell you funny. He's a rescue. He was rescued as a puppy from India, so he doesn't have the street smarts that a lot of the adult dogs we've rescued. He doesn't know what a car is, but he, you know, I kiss them all the time. I kiss them, and you know, when we think of dogs kissing, we think of licking, but Ravi will actually take his snout and push it into you, and then pull back, and that's him kissing you. So like all through the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I get this boop right on my face. And you just sit there looking at me. So yes, but back to the intelligence thing. Because one of the things I've been doing on my channel that I've been loving doing is going through the missing books of the Bible, because there's so much more to that story, more psychedelic, metaphysical stuff than the real story of Yahshua or Jesus, and of course the Magdalene as well, because she was the counterpart. And in the original Gospels, the original theology behind this new Christ consciousness at the time was this big thing. People have heard of the Gnostics, or Gnosis versus ideo. This is Greek words. Gnosis was inner knowing. Ideo was outer knowing. So ideo is everything that involves an educational system, reading a book.
Idiot.
It's reading the mind. But the Gnosis, that is something that no one can teach you. It's an inner, in the Yoga Sutras, it's called prativa. It's a flash of illumination. You know, it's the spark of consciousness. And I do think that, in my opinion, that flash of consciousness, that spark of illumination, that gnosis, that to me is the highest level of intelligence. And that's something we're all born with. You know, like you look at a small child who doesn't even know how to go to the bathroom by themselves, and they know what God is. They know what source is. They see the angels. They don't need anybody to tell them that they were created for a reason. They have that connection to the divine. And then something happens along the way where that gets disrupted. Or we get told we're crazy, or, you know, don't trust your gut, you know, better to learn the books, you know? And so I think, and I do think, because I know, Captain, you brought up a lot of good points about we need people who are good at the intellectual stuff. And maybe in the future we can find, in the new earth, we can find a place where both the gnosis and the ideo have their correct balance, if that makes sense.
I think undoing the programming is such a big point to do with what you're talking about. You know, the programming we get as adults all the way through life to create us to fit into the program that they want. And so going back to that state of the inner child and that purity and that clarity that we actually lose as we grow within this 3D matrix reality. So I think just undoing all that programming is part of what we need to do to get to a better place.
And to accept everyone's gifts, because, you know, I always use this scenario, because everyone in my house loves football, is you've got to have your goalkeeper, your defenders, your midfields, your strikers. The whole point is we need the carpenters, we do need surgeons, we do need you know, car mechanics, we do need cooks, we do need vets for certain things. I mean, I do loads of holistic therapies, but I still have to have a vet at times, you know. So I think it's appreciating the different stages, but not putting a judgment and a level on top of them, you know. But and that's where I think I'm so excited to see where it goes forward. I am really, really excited. I mean, look at what's happening now. This last year, never before, I think, have manual workers been so appreciated, because everyone's now thinking, it's no good me being an actuary or an accountant or a bank manager or an investment banker. You know, I need a trucker, I need a mechanic, I need a carpenter, I need the practical skills. I'm afraid you guys, you're not as it's people are really looking at things differently, don't you think, and realizing that so many people I know are moving out to the country or changing their lifestyle, or are saying now, actually, I know we're allowed into the office, but I'm not commuting up to London every day again, like I used to, leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning and getting home at 8 o'clock at night, where I've got used to seeing my family now and going for a jog at lunchtime. I'm not going back to that.
Yeah. What's that life? So Alan Watts is my favorite people that really brought Eastern philosophy to the forefront to the Western world. And it was one thing, you know, people was like, what's the point of life? What's the point of life? And he used to say, the point of life is to be alive. Be alive. You know, and yeah, you're right. Because I know, like, my parents live outside of Atlanta, and here in Atlanta, we have the MARTA system, which is like our subway, but it only goes in like 2 directions. No one really takes it. Trust me, it's hot as balls in the summertime. You do not want to be 6 feet under the ground here in the summertime. But everybody drives. Like, this is a driving city. You have to drive, and traffic is unbelievable. And I had a friend growing up outside of Atlanta. He would literally spend like 4 hours in the car every day just to get to downtown Atlanta, where he was an engineer, work all day, and then drive like 2 hours in traffic back home 5 days a week. That's not life. That's not life. Like, ooh, like, why do you want to do that? Like, that's, and I feel so blessed, like, being able to do YouTube now, because I work from home now. And so it's given me a flexible schedule. It's given me, you know, I get to spend a lot more time outside with my dog. I get to, you know, it has given us that appreciation for just being alive, just being here to breathe and experience and be the witness. I mean, that's a big thing in the yoga world, is being the witness, is being able to watch everything and take it in and observe it, you know, without judgment, and then react after you process without judgment. So, yeah, hopefully, you know, they say whatever the devil used for bad, God will make for good. And so this whole situation with what's happened globally in the last 2 years, I really feel like we are, after this is all over, we're going to look back and see what an important, like, incubation time, like cocooning time it was for us spiritually, to have that kind of, what's it Cindy says, sometimes you have to descend before you can ascend, to kind of have that dark night of the soul, be forced to sit in solitude. They wanted it for our worst, but we ended up using it for the better, to better ourselves, to find ourselves again, and to course correct as humanity. Because you can look at it from one way, that it's super stressful because every country in the world is going through this, so there's like nowhere to go. Like, you can't just go, like, there's no safe haven to go to. It's every country is in this situation, so where are you going to run to? You can look at it that way, in a bad way, or you can look at it like, holy crap, every country in the world is in this situation. We have no choice but to evolve as humanity. Right. We all have to go together.
And it's balance, isn't it, too? Because you can get caught up in the volcano of it all, and sort of it's a very disruptive energy, and it doesn't feel good. It's very disturbing, you know, when you get caught up in all the 3D and look at catching up on all the posts of what's happening and rah rah rah. But you have to have that balance, I think, which is hard to co-create sometimes, which is just where you are the witness, which is what you're talking about, where you're just viewing it, you're living your own life, you're aware of what's happening, but you're not too caught up in it so that it becomes everything in your life, and that you're not actually living life. Yep. So that's another thing that can happen, that you just get so caught up in everything that's going on that you don't actually live life.
Right. David, what do you... Oh, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I think we've been accustomed to, on purpose, we've been accustomed to think that doing what you guys are talking about, leaving, you know, for work at 5 a.m. or whatever it is, and coming home at 8, or even if it's 7 to 7 or whatever, that is normal. You know, we've been accustomed to that is life. And when you want to do something different, people look at you a bit funny. You know, I'm sure we've all had that experience where we've all set our lives up now and made those decisions that society would have frowned upon, like you mentioned, Catherine. And that, but we were doing it, maybe not even necessarily from maybe our higher self, I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like, And it's just funny how it kind of goes back to removing yourself from society, because you kind of know what you want, and you know that you didn't want any of that, whatever that was, right? And so yeah, I think that it's just so funny how things work out, you know. And we can use this time for growth, like you mentioned, Brice. We can. Unfortunately, there'll be a certain percentage of people that won't. You know, there'll be a certain percentage of people that will just go retreat back into safety, or maybe even, God forbid, take themselves off the earth plane or whatever. Something will happen. You know, they're not ready. Their soul isn't ready. But majority of people, I think, will rise up. And for people like us who have done a lot of the work prior, it's not going to be as challenging as it would have been if we hadn't.
Oh God, yes, absolutely. And I think that's important to hit on that, because I know I've spoken a lot about that because of you know, if anybody reads the Law of One, it very much outlines what's happening right now. And it's exciting to read it because it explains it, but the soul has to be ready, you know. And there are people on this, you know, the biggest illusion that we have as humanity, as human beings, as in this humaning experience we're in, is this idea of death. That's just an illusion. The only thing that goes away is the body. The soul, you can't kill a soul. You know, it's an energy. Energy can't be destroyed or created. It can only be shifted, right? And so, in the Law of One talks about this, that, you know, the universe, God, source, you know, whatever you want to call the bigger picture, it's nothing but love. And it's like, if you have a kindergartner student, you wouldn't then all of a sudden take your 5-year-old kindergarten and stick them in university. Like, that's ludicrous. You would want them to experience all those grades in between so they could grow and develop at their own pace. Or if there's a student that needs to be held back a year for whatever reasons, of course, you would lovingly do that for them, right? And that's kind of what the soul's journey is too. And some people's souls are not ready to meet, and that's okay. And, you know, and I know that there's going to be a lot of, and I know people get upset when I say this, but there are going to be a lot of people that are going to have to like exit soon because they're not ready to go into the fourth density, and that's okay. And we have to get rid of this like illusion that there's a timeline, that there's like, and that's hard for us as human beings, right? Because we live in a prakriti and nature based existence, and nature has beginning, middle, end. And the whole law of beginning, middle, end is change. And so we're constantly fighting against this timeline, but that's just the nature. That's the Shakti, the expression of what's eternal, because the eternal is never changing and is always the same and is always growing eternally towards that same end light, that same end goal. It's like the Ram Dass quote, we're all just walking each other home. Literally, some of us are going to get there before the other ones, but we're all just walking in the same direction towards the same light. But if some people aren't ready, that's okay. You know, if we force someone, we try to force someone to evolve with us, then that in itself is a negative quality. They have to want to do it themselves. They have to be able to do it themselves.
Because also they're just assuming that that they want the same as us, and they don't, because their view on the world is completely different. So what we see as traumatic or painful, as difficult, they don't have those struggles because they've got a different view on life. And also what you were saying earlier, Brice, about you can't just run away to another area of the country. I think that is the perfect analogy for a lot of the spiritual conundrum, because so many people think, when I've changed my job, I'll be happy. When I have kids, I'll be happy. When this happens, when I get a nice haircut, I'll be happy.
Get the right boyfriend, get the right,
you know, the point is the fact that it's happened in most places on the globe. So many, it's such human nature to run away from challenge. And we haven't been able to run away with challenge. We've been stuck here, and therefore look at how it is all being resolved. Touch wood, we're seeing a lot of progress in a lot of different ways. But if we'd have all been able to move to Mexico or Florida or whatever, we wouldn't have resolved any of those issues, either for ourselves or for the planet. And so I think it's so great that we've been forced to sit there, because there's so many people that, you know, that I work with, and they always think when this happens, it will be okay. And we know, no, you've got to deal with the issue now. Otherwise, you're just going to take that issue with you to the new situation.
It reminds me of my kids, because one of my girls, her hair was straight, and she would always say, oh, if only I had curly hair, everything would be okay. And then my son, he went through a phase where he'd said, Oh, I wish I was black. I love black people. They're so cool. Anyway, if you want to
I dyed when I was in my early 20s, I come from a family full of blonde people, just full of blonde people, blue-eyed blonde people. And I dyed my hair really dark in my 20s. And I remember when I first came back from the hairdresser, my friend was like, girl, you were meant to be a blonde. And it took me forever to get like that dye. So I totally get that. The grass is always on the other side, but we got to learn to accept what we've been given. So
I know, it is hysterical.
I think the other thing too is the point that you made, Brice, about how we've been really indoctrinated within the Western culture to fear death and to not be able to deal with death. You know, it's become very taboo. You know, it's one of the most taboo topics. You can't speak about death because it's just not appropriate. You know, and it's like we've learned to really become very scared of this concept of what it is to die, and to really disconnect from the fact that our soul is just going on a journey in the same way that you know, we were born. It's continuing its journey, but you know, the whole Western culture is actually set up, or you could say the cabal agenda or indoctrination program is to make us extremely sort of unknowing about this, and to be extremely fearful of this process, when really we need to undo again all that programming that makes us not live life because we're scared of dying, because we're scared of death. And so that often the things that are our challenges and our obstacles, there's a deep subliminal subconscious fear of dying that creates these challenges and these difficulties. When we release that and know that we continue forever, it really liberates us on so many levels to live life fully.
It's so hard. It's so funny because when you were saying that, I was trying not to laugh, because if any of you just see me today, my neighbours, I am the laughing stock of the neighbourhood. So what happens is I've got my old dog Star, who's 16, and she likes nice slow walks, not very far. And then I've got the younger dogs, Lola and Indy, who want to go miles very quickly. Now, whenever I take Lola and Indy, and they're Romanian, Idris, the cat, wants to come. So it's like a comedy show where we have to try and sneak out the house, because where we live, we're right in the middle of the countryside, but there's a little bit of road that we need to go across. So we're looking around, because it's either my daughter or I that normally take them. And then when Idris is not around, we're sneaking out running, and then suddenly you hear this meow, 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 meow. So today I'd got halfway down the little stretch of lane, and this is relevant, by the way. And then so I've got my dogs and they're so excited for their walk. And then I hear meow, 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 meow. And I'm like, oh God, Idris. Now, going back to the fear of death, for myself, I would like to say I've got no fear of death. But I was absolutely shitting myself that my cat was on the road, because I'm his mummy and it's my job. So then it's like an absolute joke. So I've got these two dogs, and they're desperate pulling that way because they want to go on the walk. And then I'm scooping up Idris, who's a big boy now, and trying to run back down the road with him. And then the car's coming and I'm going, stop, like this. They're looking at my van. So, because I'm worried about Idris getting run over. But my husband just lets him come.
Oh, yeah.
My husband just lets him come, and touch wood, he's always required, because my husband's like, he knows what he's doing. He's out 23 hours of the day without us. You know, you can't micromanage the 10 minutes there. So what you were saying about the fear of death, I think quite a lot of people I know are very good when it comes to themselves, but if they're a parent of 2 or 4-legged, then it can become a bit more challenging, I think.
Oh, Sam, I'm terrified of rock, because like I said, my dog, I mean, living in a city, we have to have him on a leash anyway, and we do take him off leash when, like, in the mountains or down in Florida, he's off leash a lot. But like I said, he was rescued as a small puppy, so he has no clue about cars, like none whatsoever. And I'm terrified. Even though he's on leash, I'm constantly like checking to make sure he's not stepping off the sidewalk, or yeah, absolutely. But it's funny, you know, my grandfather, I've told this story on my channel before, my dad's dad, who is no longer, all of my grandparents are gone now, but he had a near-death experience when he was in his 40s. He had a massive like heart attack, and while he was in the hospital, when they were doing the emergency, whatever, he floated above his body. He heard the nurses and doctors having a conversation. And he said he walked into a light, and it was a light like you could not describe. And he says he saw Jesus come down, and my grandfather said it was just so beautiful he didn't want to leave. And
Wow.
Jesus kept saying, no, Ed, you have to go back. It's not your time. And my grandfather basically threw my grandmother under the bus and was like, Marianne's got this. She can handle it. Leave her with 3 kids behind, But then he woke up in his hospital bed. And of course, the doctors at first thought that he had experienced something chemical from what was happening. But when he started to explain the conversation he heard while he was flatlining, then they were like, oh, something did happen. And I only knew him after that because I was born when he was in his 50s. But he would tell that story all the time to people who were on their deathbed because he literally did not fear death. After that happened, he literally had no fear of death. At his own sister's funeral a couple of years before he finally died for the second time, he was giddy. He was like, Jane's fine. She's having a blast. I'm jealous. She's fine. And so it's like that he had that experience that like liberated him to fear. And he, knowing him as my I never knew him before, but he was so loving. He had so much integrity, and he was just so like, he was just such a bit. He was like 6'5", so he was literally a big dude. But and I just think about that a lot. He's no longer with us anymore. And when literally like before he died, I remember going out to lunch with him a couple of years, and he was eating. He was like, I think I'm going to be only here for like a couple more years. Like he was just very matter of fact about leaving again. And understanding that you're literally just leaving and going to something new. You're not disappearing. You're not disappearing,
Joanna Savin says, I know everyone's got different opinions about who says what, but Joanna Savin's always said we've got to all collectively go through a near-death experience. Do you think he was talking about this in terms of going through such enforced changes that we all start really appreciating what we have got?
Probably. Yeah. Good analogy.
Yeah. I think we're nearly there. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think I can see a train wreck coming that's unavoidable. And I was wondering, that was going to be a question I had to all of you, was, do you think, because he talks about the US going through it, and I was like, is it going to be a worldwide thing? Is it going to be a,
it has to be.
It would have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because I can see it's coming, and it's coming soon. It's going to be pretty soon.
Yeah.
But by the way, speaking of Jesus, you've got all this light emanating down above you, Dave. You look like you've got a halo.
Right away, I'm a second coming.
Actually, I had a question for all of you, and it was something that one of you mentioned. It might have been Brice, or I don't know. You said that energy can't be created nor destroyed. Maybe it was Catherine. And if that is the case, which I believe it is, why is it you get these old souls and then you get these people, these quote unquote not old souls? Is it just because if we've all been around at the same time, wouldn't we all be the same age or whatever, right? Or is it just
that's a question for the Galactics? Because I know that's something I've been studying on my own now, just the whole concept of the 12 tribes of Israel actually being galactic. And that the Lyran group, the lion group, is the house of Judah, which is why the Lyrans have like a golden hue, which is the whole orange man bad thing, which is what they were pointing out, was that their people's skin color is going to start to shift a little bit when we start to move up into our galactic heritage. But I know the Lyran group is like one of the oldest groups of humanity. And a lot of, I would guess from my, this is just my own guesswork assumption, which my father used to say, assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So take that with a grain of salt, that most of us who are awake right now on this journey that have these platforms are probably from a group like the Lyran. The Law of One calls it wanderers, that we decided to come down to help the newer souls, whether that's created by source that have come in to help them pull forward. I don't know, because I think the only thing that can create that energy would be like God or source, whatever you want to call the main Mac Daddy. Mother, I know the Sophia text, the Gospel of Holy 12 calls it Mother Father energy. So that's a really good question, David. I don't know if the human mind has an answer. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that it's two things. I think perhaps maybe on one level, the people that are awake or that are considered old souls are souls that progress at a much faster rate than the other ones, for one. And two, they say that we have the ability to be, our soul can incarnate on, 140 different,
yes,
140 different, things, planets or realities simultaneously, right?
Yep.
So it could just be that the majority of the souls that incarnated on Earth or they're here right now just haven't. It's the first. It's kind of, well, not the first, but you know, they haven't incarnated. You know what I mean? Like they more souls just incarnated here that weren't more evolved. If that makes sense, you know. So the majority of souls that for some reason didn't. It's a bit of a mind. It's a bit of a mind f. But you know, like yeah.
Could the souls have emanated from the Godhead at different times, so that they didn't all emanate at once, but
Right.
at different stages, and so that they've it could be maybe something to do with that.
Oh, sorry, Medyhne, have you finished?
Yes.
Delay. It's really hard, isn't it? With day. I heard a really funny thing this week, and again, oh, sorry, I can't remember who said it, but it's funny. So I've heard a lot of people, spiritual people, not all, but a lot of them, that when they're talking about the old souls, it's almost like it comes across that old souls are better or more evolved than young souls. But this person was hysterical and it really resonated. It was like, well, actually, the old souls have had to come back a lot more times to learn the lessons. So stop thinking you're above everyone else, because actually you've had to keep coming back because you've been a bit slow on the uptake, sort of thing. And I just thought it was brilliant because actually it's like, you know, at some sort of conscious level, we're still comparing which is better, old or young, you know.
You don't compare an adult with a child and say, well, that child's not good enough because they're young and they don't know, you know.
Exactly. It was just really made me laugh. I thought, hallelujah, I'm glad someone's addressed it, because I had heard a lot of sort of almost snobbery about being an old soul, and it just really made me giggle anyway. So
the young souls haven't got it yet either. So
none of us. Well, the whole thing about the soul being able to split off, when I first found that out, I was like, oh my god, this is so, what is this? But yeah, I mean, that's the whole twin flame thing, right? Is that they're it's one soul that decided to split into two people, even though you're whole within yourself, but your soul is split. But then you start to think about how many times you've now split, and how you can be doing something galactically with one fraction of your soul while your other soul is like standing at the grocery store picking out bread. You know, it's like it's and even with like these spirit board, you can like channel your higher self too, which is bizarre, because let me tell you, I like my higher self a whole lot.
Thank you, Brice. We've been having such fun with these.
No wonder.
Well, I've got a question for you on this then, Brice. Okay, for everyone, but I have this, something keeps coming up to me. I keep getting this resistance when people talk about what is it, twin souls or twin flames, because going back to David's point about if we're all energy, if we all believe that we are all connected anyway, then what is this? Is it like, oh, I'm just a bit more connected with that person? We've all got each other in it.
We're all connected, but literally, from what I understand, because I've really come across this with the Magdalene and the Christ, that they're both with the Christ consciousness as in twin flames, and that not everybody actually has a twin flame. There's only a certain amount, because your soul made an agreement at some point to actually split into two, for whatever soul contract that was, whatever work that you had to do, your soul actually split into two entities. This sounds like it sounds like a sci-fi movie. It really does. Like a Stephen King.
I don't know. It just feels off to me. I know everyone that believes it, but it's like, so are we saying then that souls aren't part of the energy?
No, they are. They absolutely
are. If they're part of the energy, surely all our souls are connected.
They are, but it's like different. Like Taylor Moon does a really good job of explaining it, because like you have your soul family, which that has taken me a while to understand. Which is not your biological. That's your biological family is considered your karmic family. And then you have soul mate. Well, the funny thing is my sister and I don't have any karma. We're complete dharmic. Like we have no, like we are perfectly smooth sailing. So, but I know there are other members of my family I have karma with for sure. But then you have like soul, because we've lived many lives, right? So you have all these soul connections, but the twin flame is literally, and not all twin flames are ever going to be together in a life or even know each other. You know, it depends on what the purpose was for that soul, because everything is about you learning and growing, right? So whatever your soul needed to do to evolve is what it did. And if it meant splitting off into two, and as you're saying, David, it could be 140 that your soul decided to fraction off into. Maybe there was an ability for you to learn more lessons if you split and had two different experiences. Does that make sense? I mean, it's wild. It's wild, the amount of possibilities that there are. And that's what also creates like multidimensional timelines as well. That's happening constantly. I mean, we talked about that before we started filming, the fact that we were saying that we understand we're about to flip timelines, which from what because we know that the Gregorian calendar isn't real. We know the Julian calendar isn't real. And what I keep getting from this is we're going back to the Atlantean calendar. Well, what is that? We don't know, because we have no idea what that looked like. So what is the real date? You know, like, I don't know. You know, so there's so many different realms of possibilities when it comes to the cosmos and the galactics and multi-dimensional timelines that are happening, that, you know, again, it just comes down to your own soul's contract, like what you decided to do with your guides, before coming down again to this plane of existence. Because it really is all just a school. It's all just a learning experience for you to learn yourself. It's like Alan Watts says, it's like the eyeball trying to see itself. You know, that's what the eyeball's actually trying to see. How do you do that? You can't look in the mirror, because that's a distorted view of what the eye, you know, I can see your eyeball, but can you see your own eyeball without any type of reflective gear? It's the unsolvable riddle, right?
This all makes me laugh so much, because you know how we've all said we can't wait to watch the real movie when it's over. Well, when you were just saying that, Brice, I was thinking, can you imagine the hysterical conversations that when our soul, when we pass over from this life and our soul goes up to and re-meets the guides that have helped you choose what you came back? Can you imagine, what the hell did you make me go and do that for? Why did I have agreed? Why did you persuade me to do that? It just makes me laugh. I bet there's some really interesting discussions that go on.
The law of one says that sometimes the soul, when the soul is getting ready to take a life, because one life on this earth plane is so fast in spirit world that we're trying to get like everything in. We're like, give me a bad breakup here, give me a divorce there, give me, like, we're trying to get everything in. Our guides are like, whoa, tiger, like, and then we get here, we're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, you know, because it's so overwhelming.
Like bingo, you know, you're desperately trying to take them off as quick as possible, but sometimes you might be better just slowing down.
Pick one of two. Do you want the bad divorce or do you want the car accident? Pick one of two.
Or
you know,
some people get like 7 divorces, you know,
exactly.
in a lifetime.
Like, that soul was an eager beaver, an overachiever, like, give it all. Let's just get through this. You know,
I know some amazing women who've had many multiple marriages, and they actually seem to know a lot more than some of the other ones. So, you know, there's no judgment there.
But isn't it funny though? Isn't it funny how people sometimes they go through a divorce or multiple, and they keep marrying the same person.
Yeah.
And so they keep having these divorces.
They're not learning the lesson.
Because they're not learning the lesson, right? So when they get to the end, if they get to the end of their life and they go up there and they go and, you know, review and see what happened, they go, well, I didn't even learn that lesson. I have to go and do it all again, you know, and have another 7 divorces.
I think on the whole, we're spiraling upwards, you know, we're in the process of evolving and ascending. So it's a continual process of going up. And as we go up in that spiral, we're magnetizing to us the things that we need for our experience in order to do that. And so I think if you think of it as a way of everything that comes to you, you're magnetizing to you in order for that process to spiral upwards. I think that's a good way of looking at it.
Cats. Come to me. Oh, there's many. You know, when they take the piss about these old ladies who live with lots of cats, well, I don't see anything wrong with that. I have got humans in my life too, but what could possibly be wrong with that? I don't get it. So obviously I'd love to see what that means about what happened in my last life. Oh, well, you can tell we're all on good form because we do have a laugh. I mean, I think there's been a huge shift. If you look back on perhaps what we were, where we were at vibrationally when we first started doing roundtables and where we are now, I think it shows a huge shift in where we're at and how good things are.
Yeah, laughter is the best medicine. It really is. And that's one thing, that's the highest level of spirituality, is when you can actually laugh at yourself. When you don't take yourself that seriously, where you can't laugh at yourself and laugh at your situation sometimes. And so laughter, I mean, Catherine, you know, my weekly videos with Taylor and Stephanie, I didn't think we were going to release that video. We ended up just losing it in the middle of a reading, and you know, and it just is what it is. It's laughter is the best medicine. So it does change the vibration for sure.
Any final words from you, David?
I would just like to say that I think that there are many animals that are smarter than humans on many levels. Just to go back to something that we spoke about before, but I never got to have a chance to say that. But I do think that animals are a lot. You see animals do so many crazy things, and it's like some humans, I'm not going to go into it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But in terms of parting, in terms of parting words, oh my God, I don't know, even know where to begin. There's just so much happening, and it just like really, I think, center yourself and really, I don't know, I always say this, do the things that you want to do in life, because it's not, you never, like, tomorrow's never promised, is it? So we kind of, you'd be surprised at what you can get done if you just put your mind to it. I know there's a lot of distraction out there. I'm distracted all the time because of the stuff that's happening. In the last 2 years, I've been more distracted than ever, for obvious reasons. But at the same time, I've also achieved more than I ever have, in that 2 years before, in that 2 years as well. So you can do a lot if you just really kind of put your mind to it. And imagine what will happen once this all is gone, and we move to a different part of it. Let's just say, imagine how productive you'll be then.
I think it's just about following your heart and following your truth, and then you can't really go wrong. And if those truckers and those people joining in those convoys, if that's in their heart and that's their truth, then all power and so much love and support and blessings to everyone that's doing that, and just for everyone that's following their truth and their heart. I think that's a brilliant example that you can give the world at the moment. So.
Oh yeah, here. What about you, Brice?
To everybody watching, you are enough, you are loved, you are special. And if there is something in your life that is the pattern that you recognize in your life, whether it's a work, job, a relationship, compliance, whatever, you have the power to change that, because you are a powerful being. And laugh, just laugh.
Laugh and laugh. Thank you so much, all of you. That is such fun, as always. Hopefully we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, everyone. Everyone all right for 2 weeks' time?
Yeah.
Well done, David. You do it well done. A big pat.
Hopefully daylight savings will kick in a few, well, it's going to be a while, isn't it, for you? And then it will be an hour later for me.
Yeah.
I will say, because I do Australia a lot, and it's our summertime, your wintertime, we're closer together in time. So.
Yeah. When I was living in Melbourne, there was only about because it was such a big time difference, but with the west coast of the US, or the North America, it was such an enormous time difference. But if you really look at it, it was only like a 5-hour time difference, because it was a 19-hour time difference. But yeah.
And this goes on to another discussion that we're going to have at some stage, because this fits into the, are we all really as far away?
Are we as far as we think we are? Yeah.
Is it all an illusion? But we'll have to leave that for next time. Thank you so much, everyone. And to everyone who's listening, everyone's links, because it will be on all our channels. So all of our links will be below the videos as normal. And we really, really appreciate you taking the time to listen, join in, and share your energy with us. So thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.